Hello, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, and welcome to another episode of Fanalysis, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. I'm Retty4, this is Greyjoy91.
Hello.
And this is Evan Nova 95.
Hello.
Matt, summarise this chapter for us.
So this is chapter 7, I believe, right?
Indeed.
Yeah, 7. Good, thanks, Evan. Mudbloods and Murmurs. Summary. This chapter is it's packed with quite a lot. It's I wouldn't say it's aimless, but there's a lot going on here. But the main point is that we get this notion of blood purity explored, and this all is like framed around Harry just trying to have a simple Quidditch practice. So it's really much more easily discussed than it is summarized. So let's go ahead and get into it.
Well, we open up with the wonderful Oliver Wood being a bit manic and just grabbing Harry and waking up in the middle of the morning for a dawn practice.
I empathize with this sequence so hard because Wood, he reminds me so much of my old wrestling captain because he would do things like this. He would call us in early, for exercises and try and, give us strategies just on the fly at odd hours. It's hilarious how similar it is and how much he's just the archetypal, team captain.
It's fun how to revisit he's part of what makes it fun to revisit these earlier books, because it's not so much that the later books suffer for him being gone, but there's certainly a flavor that he took with him when he graduated, that isn't quite replaced, which it shouldn't have been. You don't want to have just an insert character for no reason, but he's a staple of these earlier books, and I like revisiting them with him in it.
Yeah,
I think that kind of has to do with the theme of the overall theme that she's going for in the later series, because he kind of embodies the more archetypal school sort of feeling, more happy-go-lucky that the early books are kind of centered around, and him being absent kind of helps hammer in that maturity angle she was going for a bit. That's just my assumption, but
well, it largely as well because Quidditch so heavily becomes, it's, for one thing, it's less relevant later on in the series, but also when it does come up, it's more attached to the progression of the main characters who are now more heavily involved in the actual control of Quidditch. So they're Harry's a team captain, for example. So it's the focus kind of shifts away from the need to have that dynamic. So even aside from the fact that he's just older and therefore graduates, it was a good idea to have him kind of take a step back or removed from the picture rather in the later series.
He wouldn't have had anything to do in book 4, where the Quidditch Cup isn't the Quidditch Cup. What Quidditch?
Something
what do you call it?
Yeah,
The season, the Quidditch season, is called off, and then later on, like you said, it's not really I'm actually surprised when you think about it how late into the series Quidditch does stay relevant to Harry, because he still cares about it in Order of the Phoenix for understandable reasons. But by that point, Voldemort is back, so it's
how much time do you really want to focus on it in the books themselves from a narrative standpoint? You can't. It has to be more of the grounded school day reality, not the central kind of. The audience aren't going to be celebrating the victory of the tournament because who cares? There are bigger problems at fish to fry. Not in the same way, anyway.
It's really not until book 6, I would say, that it starts to become less relevant to Harry. Even it's and that's more to do with his preoccupation with Malfoy at the time. But let's get back into what we're talking.
But we
bright
get
and early for practice.
Yeah, bright and early for practice, and I will skip. I know we're skipping a scene for a moment, but the thing I like most about this in relation to Wood is his interaction with the team in the changing rooms and the pre-planning for the practice, and he's going through. I love the dialogue and the interactions that and the kind of back and forth between him and the twins. I have one question, Wood. Why couldn't you have told us all this yesterday when we were awake?
I like that it's George who says that as well, and not Fred, because that's normal. The kind of Fred is the snarky one, but George is clearly not the morning person as well.
Yeah, the less active one. Yeah, and just the familiar, just that comfortable familiarity they have with one another. One of the twins, I think it's Fred, that's fallen asleep on Alicia's shoulder, and the way she kind of has them all, not necessarily in this specific scene, but later on in the books, they have them all. They have a rapport with one another.
I like the image of Wood so any questions and I have a question, all of it. It's gonna be this earnest thing, and he gets the response. It's I should have known it's you asking the question. Never mind.
But the scene we skipped to get there, sorry, is the Colin.
Well,
basically just Collins.
Colin.
Yeah.
There's really not much we could say about this.
Asking questions about we get out. It's I think she honestly just put that in there to just kind of reintroduce some of the rules of Quidditch, which really.
That's exactly why it's there.
Yeah, it's there. To explain re-explain rather the rules of Quidditch, but also we need to have a scene that kind of hammers in his presence in the narrative, because he's going to be one of the first losses that we really care about in the end of it with the basilisk entering the fray. So he needs to kind of be present, and we have to be reminded that he's there. And yeah, he's just coloning, but it's that kind of setup to make us keep him in mind for the rest of the story. But yeah, he collins all the way down to the pitch, and then we get obviously the scene with the team, and then they go out to the practice, which is the proper part of this chapter, or at least the crux of what themes that get introduced in it. Harry and Ron turn up as well.
Yeah, they attempt to do a full blown practice, but that quickly gets interrupted when the Slytherin team arrive.
I love Wood's outrage. Like, but I booked it. I booked it.
Well, he's like apoplectic. You know what I mean, and I again, like I'm always talking about how great the audiobooks, but it's it's funny because like you're British, Callan, like how well you're able to do the impression without hearing the book, because you just guys have similar speech patterns, you know, and it's almost like he's tripping over his words to say it. He can't. I can't further emphasize that I booked it. You know, it's like it breaks the rules. Like it's like that whole cutting in cues thing. It's like it's booked for me. I booked it. You can't be here.
Just can't. It just isn't how it works. Yeah.
It doesn't make like a wall stopping anybody else from entering, but it's like a social contract. You're not allowed to be here, you know. So it's hilarious.
And his insistence as well. But the fact that it's just undone by a little note from Snape. It's like, I'm Severus Snape, and you know Malfoy needs to be trained on this day apparently. So yeah.
Well, he's the new seeker. So Snape went around like lurking around the school, like eavesdropping on Wood's plans. I have to fuck over Potter somehow.
I didn't even think of it like that, but yeah, that entirely could be a thing. When are you doing? When is Gryffindor? Are you looking forward to getting Gryffindor back on the pitch, Wood? It's like, yes, sir. Part of my plan. Wanders off. Classic Snape. But yeah, basically just they want to get Malfoy trained, and he's introduced in this, and he's been put in as the new Seeker and bought his way onto the team, including the Nimbus 2001s in the packet. And this obviously leads to the mocking from Hermione that at least everyone on the Gryffindor team.
It's line for line from the film. Yeah,
different place obviously. They actually got to the pitch in the book, which I like because again we get that scene with the team, which is so important, and it's just one of those scenes that understandably is cut from the film, but is needed in the book. And Malfoy's retort is to obviously drop the real thing we need to talk about here. He drops the Mudblood line.
And it's interesting because Harry doesn't recognize it, so he doesn't have.
Nor does Hermione, which is different from the films.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Well, I'll get to that when we get to Hagrid's
when we get to Hagrid's hut is when that comes up. Yeah. But the rest of the team are outraged. You know.
How dare you? Like literally.
Yeah. Fred and George are outright throwing themselves towards Malfoy, and I like the image of Flint going, "Oh crap!" and jumping in between. Yeah. That was just comical to me. It's like, I would not want to be him right now.
And it's more like I think for Flint, it's like, Lucius Malfoy will punish me or something if I let his son get fucked up. It's not as opposed to I have to protect Malfoy.
Yeah, he doesn't care. He doesn't care, but it's just like oh god, this is necessary.
So Ron tries to curse him, but it backfires because of his faulty wand.
Spectacular fail on his part, but it's nice to know that he jumped to the defense of his friend. You know, it's a nice little bonding moment for the trio.
And he's been kind of saying "eat slugs" the whole book as like a mild insult to everyone, and he actually tried to make it like a thing, which is actually surprising to me. That in theory, it's only because the wand fucked up. Like he knows how to do this curse, I suppose. Yeah. And Hermione says it's a difficult one to do. So
props to Ron for that then.
It would have been great had it worked.
Oh, yes.
He would never.
Yeah. That would have been satisfying.
Oh, yeah.
That would have been satisfying. But yeah, sadly, we never get. Well, we do in the third book, but apart from that, with the Hermione punch, we don't really get a comeuppance for Malfoy. Unless you go, he does. He does on but they're never in the physical sense. Like we never get that satisfying blast of spell until we get the horrible dark tone of book 6.
They're normally tied into something that's not really. It's either not a direct cause of Harry's actions, or at least not Harry's actions alone, or there's a consequence involved for having it having been done.
Or it's a tit for tat, like the dueling scene, for example, in this book. It's like a back and forth rather than an actual comeuppance for him.
I would say that one's sort of unique, but there are times when Malfoy is a bit of a. I mean, there's even a part in the third book where Ron flings a crocodile heart and hits him full on the face, just because it gets him he gets lots of points taken away, but he's that it would be worth it, to do that to Malfoy. Like in Snape's class as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. I'd forgotten about that one. Yeah, but there are instances, but they're few and far between, and it's just a shame we didn't get it for this one. But I liked as well in the prose when the Gryffindor team, no one quite wanted to touch him. It was like, I don't blame them when he's like vomiting slugs into his lap.
The only the slightly awkward bit is that he has two brothers on the team. Just leave him there.
Yeah, and it's Hermione and Harry that get their arms under his and lift him up and head towards Hagrid's.
They're really lucky, and I was thinking, oh my god, could you imagine if like Lockhart showed up at this point, what he would have tried to do? And they only narrowly dodged the bullet because he's there at Hagrid's, of course.
Yeah. Managing to annoy even Hagrid as well, who usually has respect for the Hogwarts teachers, but not this one, understandably, as Harry notes. We get the kind of enter into that. There's a lot of stuff to talk about here because this is where obviously the main discussion comes up. But this entire scene with Hagrid's hut is one of my favourite, certainly up to this point that we've explored in the story, but also probably overall. It's definitely like a top 10 Hagrid scene for me because the natural dialogue here, it's doing a lot of groundwork laying, for like things that will come back later in this book, and it's obviously exploring some of the themes of the book of the series as a whole with the Mudbloods thing. But as well as that, you get the jabs at Harry about about Lockhart. You get the playfulness of the slug thing. There's a lot here that's just Hagrid being Hagrid, and I really appreciate that for that. Reason.
This is before he's a teacher. He's just kind of like a much older friend, like an uncle-y sort of person, and it's fun. It's like that one scene that has like nothing to do with anything in the movie Goblet of Fire, where they're all just hanging out in the woods together.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. I what I like about this scene that's different is that Ron is the one helping Hagrid explain rather than Hermione. I kind of like that because Ron gets to explain. He would know. He's the one who's more outraged about it because he's grown up knowing this kind of like if Hermione, she's just having it introduced to her, so she may grow to hate being called this, but she can't be that emotionally
invested.
She can't have that much baggage tied to it because she's just heard this concept. So it's not really like something she should be crying or fuming over. And also it's Malfoy. Who gives a shit what Malfoy thinks?
Yeah. There's like you don't grow up if you've grown up without any knowledge of magic. You're not going to feel a sense of pride attached to the idea of like I may not be pureblood, but I'm still a presence. It's not something that's going to factor into Harry or Hermione's thinking. And also Ron has historically and throughout the series been that kind of gateway for the three. He's the gateway to the lore and knowledge of the wizarding world and the community and the history. Obviously Hermione knows stuff from the books, but this isn't the sort of topic that would have come up in that sense.
Obviously you'd have him be more familial.
She's book smarts and he's street smarts. You know, like he knows the things that you would just know by osmosis of just like growing up in the world. These are just things everyone knows. Like, you guys haven't heard of this? But he doesn't. In the cases like these, he doesn't have that tone where it's like it's not condescending. He's filling them in. He's emotionally tied to it because he's appalled by it.
Yeah, and
it's also kind of pointed out like the big flaw with Voldemort's plan to an extent. They even say, if we didn't mate with Muggles, we'd have died out. It's like, you would have.
Yeah. It's just that kind of common sense.
Crazy.
Yeah, that kind of common sense thing.
Being the son of a Muggle, not even a Muggle born, a fucking Muggle.
Yeah,
so it's like
exactly.
He's
But it's like that common sense thing where he's just stating, of course this is the right thing to do. It's it's that Weasley approach to the situation and how while they are a pureblood family and they are an ancient family of some renown, it's just they don't care because that's not who they are. It's a happenstance thing for them. And that's why they feel such disgust for this, and he would have been brought up to recognise that. So it all makes sense this way, and I like as well.
It functions both ways as well. That's the reason why Malfoy hates these ones especially. It's like they view them almost like they're wasting what they are, or like not living up to it. They're making us look bad,
to the name.
It comes up later with the Polyjuice chapter.
And I like Hagrid as well, who's been supportive. And there's not a spell that's been invented that our Hermione can't do. Our Hermione is brilliant.
I mean, you have Harry Potter. You've got like I'm pretty sure Lupin. You've got and then there's like those are like half-bloods, and then Dumbledore. Like they're all like all the best ones are all Voldemort. Half-blood. It's like all the most powerful ones. It has nothing to do with anything. It's just that's the reason why it's not an especially compelling idea for like the villains, like for the villains to be tied to, is because it's just so demonstrably meaningless that it's like, you guys are just stupid, and that's kind of what it comes down to with Harry Potter villains for me. It's like, you guys are just stupid.
Yeah, it's a status thing for them, and it doesn't make any sense. It's baseless, and that's why they're the villains ultimately.
It's the crux of the story, which it's not especially. It's not a problem. It's just not all that engaging. Like Voldemort works for me because he's like, we'll get into this, but he's like a Vader or an Azula, Callan. Like I like his presence and his ability. It has nothing to do with his mission statement. Yeah.
Completely. We were talking about that just yesterday. Funny enough, Evan. That was what we mentioned the other day. But just we get that the explosion of that. We get the again the back and forth insert mentions here with when they go out into the pumpkin patch, for example, they get the mention of Hagrid have been expelled. Harry notes the notes from the help of the with the wand, and it's very naturally incorporated. Obviously, it's there to have that be mentioned and be foreshadowed, but it's not and Harry happens to mention it again. It makes sense that he's now looking at that because he's thinking that's what Hagrid means.
It's more of like a natural introduction rather than making it feel like, ham-fisted.
Yeah, and the same.
Which she's really good at that. She's always been really good at introducing plot elements that come up later very smoothly and naturally.
Absolutely. Yeah, we said before, gradual. It's one of the things she does all the time. And the other example here being the Ginny thing. He mentions, that's what Sister said when she was milling about. Because this will be Ginny, at this stage in the story, Ginny's kind of scoping out the area for the Cockles thing.
He's like, I bet she would appreciate a signed photo.
It works.
That as well.
On Harry as well. So it's like it makes sense for Hagrid to never question why she was there looking for like the roosters or whatever, because she likes Harry. It's like it makes sense for him not to wonder what she's doing there. It's so well done. That's just classic Rowling. It's funny to think that the same person is the one making these movies now.
It really is ridiculous. But Hagrid as well, just the camaraderie they have together, where he's just making fun, and Harry's like, he better not be doing that, and Hagrid's just laughing. Like, I like the sense of the bond these four have together now. I mean, this is only book 2, and it still feels so realized. It's wonderful.
Later on, this gets I hate using the word subverted and because it's so overused now. It gets like tipped like in like the opposite balance, because like Harry starts becoming, as he grows older, able to like poke at Hagrid more. As they get at this stage, he's still like a 12-year-old, and of course, like Hagrid's like, I can get the better of you pretty easily.
Yeah, and Harry starts getting cheeky and sassy with him. He's like, oh yeah, you think you're smart? Oh, yeah, brat.
There's one part there's later on when he's like, I'm a teacher, Potter. It's like, he goes, since when do you call me Potter?
Yeah, it's like, when do you call me Professor? When do you call me Potter? And it's like, Joe, I think you're so smart. It goes back into his heart.
I love
those moments.
That's a completely separate issue, but I just want to say before we ever get to that, like he's at one point he's like peeling potatoes angrily, and she describes it as though each tuber had done him a great personal wrong. Yeah, and I love that description of it. Can you peel potatoes that angrily?
Brilliant. and she does those kind of emotional outbursts well as well. I mentioned that here because with the treacle tart thing, which is I love the visual, having it being so stodgy that his mouth was like cemented shut. When Harry gets frustrated about the sign thing, his mouth snaps open. He's like, "What? Yeah. That's less of that, please. He better not be doing that." Like the way she kind of translates humorous emotion, particularly in those outbursts, I really like. She. Again, it goes back to that voice that she can so effectively capture. Every character, particularly Hagrid, because of the actual, the way she writes it visually on the page, what he's saying and how he's saying it. They have such a strong, consistent style to each of their voices that she can sell all of these different, relatively similar emotional beats in entirely different flavors just from the fact of who is involved in it. It never gets old for me. All of those little instances there, like that one especially, you said about the peeling potato thing. It's just they keep coming up and they always work. I can't think of a moment where that happened and I was like, that doesn't play right or anything. And when it comes to the humor,
me neither. But yeah, anyway, cutting back, they go back to the castle and Harry and Ron have to do their detention.
Yeah, she gets the detentions handed out to them, and Hermione, as they're walking through and they get these given, Hermione is just giving this usual Hermione expression to it. Like, well, you did break school rules. And I like at this point that the trio is like, they're not even bothered by it. They've got to the point where, okay, whatever, Hermione. just carry on.
Used to it at this point, you just roll with it.
Yeah, they roll with the punches now, which it shows you that development in their relationship, the trio.
And then we cut to the thrilling sequence of Harry helping Lockhart sign his fan mail.
Yes.
Again, very, very, yeah.
It would have been hell.
Minutes
I would
by,
not. Yeah, snail by was a great
Yeah.
line. I would not like to have been there personally, even before the voice. Just the like you can.
Well, who would?
No, well, of course, no, of course,
seriously.
of course,
It's like
of
the
course.
definition,
But
it's
I
like
mean,
the definition of dull.
of course, but I mean, in particular, because of the way she puts it across, like she does a good job of capturing the kind of monotonous, just dead brained, and just with Gilderoy, the few lines she chooses in particular, like the film.
Well, that's what you kind of got to do. You kind of just got to humor him, otherwise you'll freaking talk your ear off.
Precisely, the film was able to capture that irritation so well because of the line work in the book. It was a really solid, like, small portion where she just bored your ear off, and because it was Lockhart in particular, it was so.
I think like Gilderoy is a fairly jovial person, so like but if he were he needs an audience, so he's inclined to just go seek one out and talk their ear off. But if he had more of like a Snape-like streak, he would just be giving detentions, so he would have an audience, somebody who's captive and like can't leave, like so he could just drone on endlessly. He's that kind of person.
He would, wouldn't he?
He's like
He
compulsive,
really
So the school's actually lucky that he's more inclined to be nice, even though he's like an obvious fraud, of course. I'm not saying he's a good person, but they got off a little easier than they might have done, I think.
But just the lines like "celebrity is as celebrity does." It's like, oh god, can you not?
I love Daniel Radcliffe's face in that sequence when he just gives him that.
Yeah, he's like, what?
Brilliant.
What is wrong with you? What is your damage? But then, of course, we get the other large part of this chapter, even though it is like the second to last page, with the snake, the basilisk. Now, something that's never made quite as much sense as it could have done is why does no one ever hear the hisses? Because presumably he has to hear the hisses for the voice thing to make sense. Like he can hear.
He
the
can
voice
barely
clearly.
hear it though, right? It's like a murmur. If you were just like walking around like a castle and like, I always get the idea that it's some kind of magical augmentation of the voice that he can hear it. Like it's.
It has
remember
to be, 'cause
that
it's not explained any other way.
The reason he can hear it is because a part of Voldemort resides in him. When that part's gone, he's no longer a parcel tongue. So it's Voldemort perceiving the thing, sensing the thing. You know what I mean? It's a magical connection between Slytherin's monster and the part of Voldemort that lives within Harry. So it's to call it sound, or even like I think it like the line is blurred there, like whether or not it's like just hearing it or magical perception as well.
That's what I mean. It's not outright stated what exactly is happening and how clear she's trying to be with it, and that it does leave that line to be blurred. Like you have to explain away in your head. And I agree with you. Everything you said there, I think that's the case. It is explainable. It's not like it's glaring flaw in the books, but she could have put that across a bit better. I think at some point, like even just if you wanted the mundane explanation of just you can very faintly hear maybe hissing pipes or whatever. Like air, but just whatever you go for, it needs to have some form of clarification, because at this point you don't understand why no one's hearing it.
It's the thing is like, yeah, I guess that's true, but it's so like on the edge of his ability to hear it, really, and it kind of
it's again, it's a very minor thing
because but I mean, and it's also just by the time he's asking, the voice has moved, so people are like, no, I don't hear it, and if you said the voice, you're like, your ear's not trained to go, you're not looking for that.
You're not hearing that faint hissing. Yeah, so it's like I would have had one sentence maybe to better define what exactly is going on from everyone else's perspective. But the line itself, I love the decision the wordplay she uses. Like let me
describe it.
Let me kill you. Let me tear you. That thing.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I like the way the voice is described. Like ice cold venom, a voice to like chill the bone marrow, that kind of stuff.
Very Snake relevant as well.
Venom, snake, venom. Yeah.
Very nice, and just the even the reference to bone, like the way it's described and the way the sentence kind of runs on, it feels serpentine in its nature. And she's the kind of writer in that area that could have been entirely intentional as well. So
it probably was, but I mean, at the same time, it doesn't really. It doesn't forecast what the thing is too early, so that's cool as well.
Yeah,
because I didn't know what the creature was until they found out. I didn't call it.
And it's
when I was a kid.
It's a very open-ended, outside of the Parselton obvious hint. We don't know exactly what the type of creature is beyond that. Yeah, and the close of the chapter also ends with them returning from the detention. Harry obviously explains this to Ron, but also we get the dropping of the awards that he's been polishing, because that will, again, like we said with the Ginny and Hagrid's being expelled thing, it will come up later. So this entire chapter is just littered with elements that will return later in the story. And
I'm a little
curious.
I'm a little curious right now, like, because I don't spend much time around snakes. Like, how loudly do they hiss?
Depends on the snake, as far as I'm aware. I have a zoologist friend. I'll ask him.
Yeah, because it's like when I'm picturing him talking to, like, when the rest of the school, the dueling club, sees him talking to a snake, like, how much of the snake are they actually hearing? That wouldn't really, I guess that snake doesn't actually speak to Harry, though; it just reacts to him. It's just odd. I haven't considered that.
Yeah. But that's the end of the chapter. Like I said, aside from that mention about the award from Ron, that's basically the close. They go to bed wondering, what could that have been? And the kind of establishment of the second book's mystery is laid out for us.
The plot thickens.
Love the chapter. Like I said, I love the natural conversational scene with Hagrid. I like the introduction of the blood purity concept. I like the fun of being around the Quidditch team again. It's just a light, well-paced, very carefully crafted setup for the rest of the narrative, and indeed the series.
Light but meaningful.
But yeah, so those are our thoughts on Mudbloods and Murmurs. Let us know in the comment section down below anything you think we've missed or want to talk about in greater detail. I'm Rotty4, and I still don't have an outro.
How could you possibly want greater detail? But thanks for watching, Grigid91.
Evanova95. We hope you guys enjoyed Mischief Managed.
Goodbye.